I think you used the time dimension 2 to 3 months, right? I think that is over in that game we are in right now. I give you a few examples, at least what we experience now, which basically was in hours, actually.
Wow.
Yes, yeah. And even for the Germans, right? That's somehow, that is really a revolution. So I give you one great example in that area. We basically have the German Federal Foreign Office. In German, we call it the Auswärtige Amt. Where basically SAP helped returning the stranded German citizens from abroad, providing really a self-registration portal for the German Office of Foreign Affairs. So we had these people who got stranded outside of Germany. So we literally, really, Jürgen Müller and the whole engineering team, they developed an application actually in 24 hours. Where SAP 24 hours, not days, not months, where we basically delivered a cloud-based application. In German, it's called a Rückholprogramm application, where we basically took the stranded citizens and where they could register on the application. And also very important, right? It has to be GDPR compliant. And that solution was really built. You can imagine, Vinnie, it has to be scalable. It has to be secure, right? To manage these thousands of registrations, which we also literally had in hours. So the solution really can be deployed now also by other countries on request. And I think it was really great to see that. So one very concrete example where we really had to react in hours. And yeah, to be at Heidelberg here, where we had a lot of where we have a lot of universities, hospitals. So on March 28th, when it hit in Germany, the city of Heidelberg and the area here urgently needed to run an emergency service based on a time-consuming manual workload to route emergency transports, right, the patients to clinics and to really to the appropriate capacity. So basically, we developed a very lightweight cloud-based application to manage the capacity and also manage the availability of the different fully functional bed types. And I think that was really key. We managed now the 25 hospitals in 45 wards in Heidelberg, and I think that was really key to manage that as well.
Excelitas was founded back in 2010, as you mentioned, as a spin-off from PerkinElmer, and since then we have changed hands a couple of times with two different private equity firms. Excelitas is a technology leader in what we call optoelectronics and optics market space. We serve 5-6 different end markets: defense and aerospace, medical, industrial, safety and security, as well as consumer. And we are essentially what we call light people. We create light, we sense light, we bend light, and we use different technologies to do that. We are in 17 different locations, 10 different countries. A significant portion of our manufacturing is in Asia, but we have manufacturing in Germany, UK, as well as in Canada and parts of US as well. The new markets have opened up. The demand for our existing product with our existing customers have gone up significantly in certain areas, especially in sensing temperature and so on and so forth. So it's been very interesting last 4 months. Parts of our business has grown in 3-4x, and some parts of our business is stagnant or struggling a little bit. But I think in aggregate, we have done some amazing work in the last 3-4 months to keep the factories up and running and continue to expand with our existing customers as well as NPIs and new markets as well. Excelitas was deemed essential in all of the geography where we operate. So in a sense, we got lucky. Most part of our factories were open with exception of one of our locations in the past, but for most part, all of our locations were open. So I think the first thing we had to tackle is getting the workforce ready to work in this new environment, making our shop floor ready for social distancing protocols. And since we are in 10 different countries, they all had a little different approach in the beginning. doing shifts which are not overlapping too much, allow cleanup in between the shifts to make sure our employees feel safe and secure working in that kind of environment. So I think the first and foremost, our EHS and what we call COVID task force did a fantastic job of putting what we call layered framework to make sure our employees feel safe and secure coming to work and continue to make products which saves lives in this particular environment. It was hard because, as I suggested, we work in 10 different geographies, and our workforce comes, like, let me give you an example. You know, in Asia, we have a workforce coming from different countries, and we have a big location in Singapore, but they come from Malaysia and Indonesia, and dealing with lockdowns in different countries and, you know, different rules for testing and so on and so forth was hard. But you're right, in the end, since we're operating, it made a little bit easier on us to respond versus if we had to shut down and then reopen and rethink everything from scratch. Overall, we feel we were blessed, but the first few weeks were absolutely fairly hectic for us to kind of settle down in this new operating environment.
Well, you know, Vinnie, it's an interesting industry. We have one product. You can't see it. You better don't touch it. If it's there, you don't give us credit, as you said. You take it for granted. And if it's not there, then you get very annoyed very quickly. And especially in a city like Hong Kong, which is a vertical city. So we got 60,000 high-rise buildings. 50% of the population live or work on the 15th floor or above. So that's a lot of elevators and lifts that can no longer work when the electricity supply is becoming unreliable. So reliability is really, really very critical. And if you also think about a crisis such as the pandemic and hospital infrastructure and other critical infrastructure that relies on electricity, I think that really makes it even more important. We've done all sorts of things. We looked at obviously how we can keep our field operations going. We have implemented field force scheduling and obviously mobilization. We're also investing extensively in modernizing our generation infrastructure and going to cleaner fuels and help decarbonize the economy. So we're moving from coal to natural gas. And we actually have a number of mega projects going on right now. Interestingly, the supply chain hasn't really been so much of an impact for us. We've been still able to receive the construction materials and equipment. The challenge has been to get the experts in because all the borders are closed. So we can't get the engineering experts in and so on. So we basically using telecommuting, and we have safety hard hats with video cameras on top and using 4G and increasingly 5G here in Hong Kong to walk the site, to walk the construction site and plant, and then collaborate with engineers in Germany from Siemens and GE in the US and so on. So you become quite inventive. On the customer side, we've been rolling out smart meters, and it's interesting when you look at these business cases initially, and then often you don't really appreciate the context of a crisis or a pandemic, obviously. So we're moving from manual meter reads every 2 months to automated meter reads using network connectivity every 30 minutes or 15 minutes. And this gives us much better ability to give customers energy insights and helps them to manage their electricity. So with that come new digital channels, new web apps. We launched a new mobile app a couple of weeks ago at the right time as well, as people stay home and enjoy more sophistication on self-service. We also working on furthering our chatbot investments for taking traffic off the call center, and we see customers as well increasingly requiring a self-service kind of mindset. So there's a lot of things going on, and I think it's really interesting to see that technology is able to step up in times of crisis and make that difference.
So look, I think it's the resilience and flexibility that we've seen are traits that customers really need in order to navigate in this super dynamic environment. And I think that needs to translate into the systems that they're using, the software that they're using, so that they can really drive to remain relevant to their customers. So we see it in all of those. We talk about, at IFS, we talk about being for the challengers. And we've seen that challenger mindset in our customer base. You know, some examples are Munters, who manufacture and service air treatment solutions. You know, they saw an acute need to have their service technicians conduct work remotely. And within 2 weeks, over 200 employees in 22 countries were using our remote assistance solution for remote repair. Koba in the UK switched its operations within weeks to manufacture medical tubing. Indiflux in Denmark, who are a customer of ours, did similar. In the US, Raven Technology started producing PPE, and some of our construction customers were involved in building the Nightingale hospitals in the UK. Right. But I think across the board, we've seen loads of customers responding in incredible ways, which, you know, has been fantastic to see. So as you say, lots of beacons of light in relative darkness. Within service management, you talked about, you know, that last mile logistics component. And I think there we certainly see leveraging technologies like our remote assistance, or like scheduling and optimization, route management, where those components, which I absolutely would describe as bite-sized, having a significant impact in driving efficiency in customers. If you're having to get tests out, or you're having to deliver food packages, and we have a customer in the US as an example that is responsible for delivering food packages across the New York state, you know, making sure that you've got optimal route management has a huge impact on the ability to get those meals to the right places. So, you know, absolutely right. I think that really interesting ways in which technology is being leveraged where before the need just wasn't there.
Well, I would say that one thing that I can absolutely take credit for is the outsourcing industry's contracting discipline. There were probably about a dozen of us lawyers at the time, all becoming very good friends, competing with each other on trying to figure out how to negotiate these complex global transactions. And, you know, at the time, what an exciting time. You know, we're talking about Y2K, globalization, Thomas Friedman, the world is flat, Clay Christensen, of course, from Harvard, talking about the impacts of disruptive innovation. And it was really a tremendous time, because for the first time, the technology industry and the innovators recognized that innovation wasn't just about what they could achieve or what they could earn, but what they could change, and how they could change the human condition. And you ask, you know, how did I get involved in the United Nations Global Compact? How did we get involved in doing development work in the World Bank? Our consulting practice and business strategy practice today has come together because we're providing guidance on innovation in developing economies across you know, regions that have never seen this Western innovation before, and how we can apply it is exciting. So this is there's a lot to talk about, but of course, I think, you know, we're all born in a very exciting time. My good friends, she's the CIO of Qualcomm, Mary Glendron. She was telling me, she said, Kevin, one of the most remarkable things is in one day, we had over 50,000 video meetings a day from zero. From zero. And to think that our networks and our infrastructure today can handle that, that's what's remarkable. Because we moved to a completely different type of communication globally simply by turning on the light, which tells you something. It tells you that we've been sitting on all this innovation, but we've kept ourselves from using it. We used it now, and we're using it because we feel like we want to connect. We want to create a human relationship with people that we're missing. And so we're using it. But I have to say that we're sitting on this technology, not just here, but across IoT, across artificial intelligence, and so many areas of advanced data processing. that we have to still the same way turn on the light. And if we're willing to accept it, the opportunity for innovation in the next 20 years will eclipse even what we've seen in the last 50.
So I wrote a blog about how this could be a very serious issue for particularly the Indian heritage outsourcers. I wrote this about March, April time. We're very worried for them because they had to move into these work at home scenarios, and a typical Indian outsourcer would be about a quarter of the firm would be kind of senior level project manager types who would have laptops and could work remotely. Then they would have maybe another quarter would be senior management and folks who could actually work no problem in a remote situation. And then half of them were literally a lot of young kids. A lot of them didn't have laptops, computers at home. They live at home in very large family conditions. You'd sometimes get calls to prayer going on and very loud noises and things. And so for a lot of the Indian heritage companies, I think this was a scary proposition for them. And the Indian government reacted extremely quickly to supporting it's one of its lead industries. And there was agreements in the local government states with most of the Indian firms that they could keep, I think, around up to about a third of staff on site who were essential. And then they would have a certain amount who would obviously work from home. And I think a lot of them who just couldn't work from home, they kind of let them hang around. And because they had large benches, I mean, these companies had come off a major series of growth in the last few years. Most of these companies are a little bit over bloated anyway with staff. So they actually had the ability to let a few people just kind of work casually for a while they got through this. So I think when we looked at the IT service providers, I don't think any of them had major issues on the IT side. They found ways to get through this. They worked very hard with their clients, and a lot of the clients were, I think, fairly accommodating as well. And we never got too many issues. I mean, Cognizant had a ransomware attack, a maze attack, which was quite severe to them, but they reacted so superbly in that their CEO, Brian Humphreys, personally spent time. I think he called up about 28 of their clients and personally spent time talking them through how they were going to get past this, how they were going to fix this, and this sort of thing, and it actually bought them goodwill. And Brian will talk about how he had COVID and a ransomware attack hit him at the same time. Wow. But I think they came out stronger as a firm as a result of the issues that they've been through, and their financial results are now amongst the best in the industry. And it was, I think it was a kind of bonding experience for them and an energizing experience, because they could have just completely capitulated and thought, what the hell? But they actually, I think, used this as an opportunity to really pull the company together, pull the clients together. The board were extremely supportive, and I think they got through it quite quickly. And my only take was, don't let another one happen anyway. So there's more to it than a short-term success story of getting through the initial phases to them. I will start with a flip story that hasn't been as successful. So when Duterte, the Filipino leader, dictator, he shut down Manila, he did it with 24 hours notice, and it was a disaster. So all the call center businesses who were headquartered there, they had their main delivery centers there in Manila. They got so screwed so fast. Some of them literally couldn't do the job. They couldn't function. A few of them had resources in Cebu and other parts of the Philippines that they could shift to, but the call center industry got really hard hit. I mean, some clients were going crazy. I mean, there were some relationships that, the clients would say to you, when this is over, I'm never going to work with that company again. So that industry really did get hurt, and they were forced to some very rapid shifts into moving their clients into chatbot models very quickly. Anything they could do to try and just keep these things going. The big thing they're pushing now is work at home. So that whole work at home model is now being pushed aggressively. But I feel COVID is going to have a big long-term impact on that industry and how it's going to run. On the IT side of things, what it's done is it's sort of globalized it a lot more. I use Cognizant as an example, but they're all investing heavily in the US in particular, UK, parts of Europe, other parts of Asia. They're putting delivery resources in lots of other locations to keep continuity going. Another thing I will add about India is they did lock down not too long after the US, and that was about the same time as the US did, but they opened up quite quickly. They locked down for about a month. Now, they really struggled in lockdown in India, especially getting food, supply chains, traffic. That country is not built for that type of thing. And I think the decision was made that this is more harmful than it is helpful to the economies. And so in India now, they've opened up. People are back in offices. I think a lot of executives are still working at home if they can, but they've opened it up again. And I have an office in India. I have staff in India. I have clients in India. It's been a bad COVID situation there. Having said that, it's no worse now than it is here in the UK. They just went straight to second wave. But everyone has a mask on all the time, and they have hand sanitizer. That's how they operate. They just have the masks on. They have hand sanitizer. They just get on with life. A lot of people have had the virus. A lot of people I know, but it's been very tough for them. But they've just battled through it.
I run an organization that's global in nature, and I have for many, many years touched the world in different places. From the east in Japan all the way to California, and I had a customer. I started my morning at 7 a.m. About 2 weeks ago, with a customer in Nagoya, a car manufacturer in Nagoya, and then a university in Kyoto. And then I went on to Indonesia with one of our big social digital native companies. Then off to my financial services company in Germany, Deutsche Bank, having discussions with them. And then into Brazil with a company in Brazil, 2 companies in Florida, into a company in New York, and ended up in California later in that day. And at night, before I went to bed, my last customer was back in Indonesia. And I thought to myself, wow, just think about that. 7, 8 companies in one day all around the world would probably have taken me 2 to 3 weeks to get that accomplished, traveling around the world with hours between driving between the customer, trying to get a calendar organized, this one's not available on that date. And so trying to get your hotels organized, the cities, the travel, all of that disappeared. And in one day,